Hello and welcome to the Ivy League Sisters podcast, where you're invited into the world of high-achieving women who earned that coveted Ivy League degree and now are here to get real and honest about the pressures and expectations that come with claiming this achievement. I'm Lauren Baluchian, and I'm the founder of Ivy League Sisters, a mentorship community where intellectually curious and slightly rebellious women band together to support each other through the personal and professional seasons of life. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of perfection to reveal the authentic, often messy, and always inspiring stories of women who have been where you are. So whether you're an Ivy League graduate, a high achiever in any field, or simply someone striving to live a more authentic life, the Ivy League Sisters podcast is a place where you can realize you're not alone. And if you're new here, like and follow this podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. I hope you enjoy the conversations. In today's episode, The Power of Imperfect Progress, we're joined by our guest, Stephanie Scheinkman, who shares her experience of hitting rock bottom during COVID while juggling young children and a demanding consulting career. Her candid story reveals how crisis can become a catalyst and lead to discovering a more authentic path. She has now found a way to blend coaching with her business expertise. You know, one things I thought would be really interesting to explore with you would be talking about, because you've spoken into Ivy League Sisters in the community, what you described as rock bottom. And that is a term that people use on different scales to different people. So would you be open to speaking into what your life was like before COVID, and then what really was happening with you that you describe it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think before COVID, on the surface, I had all of the things, many of which I don't think I really ever believed I would have. So I had every reason to just be, on top of the world. I had great husbands, solid job. We were, solid enough financially that wasn't a major concern. I had two healthy kids, mostly without major issue. I had minor stuff in between the kids, but that was not a major journey on my part in terms of being able to have children. So I had all the things without a ton of trauma, and every reason to be really, really happy. And I think for the most part, I was, but I think life was living me more than I was living life. And it was just sort of the grind of it all. And, it's a lot. When COVID happened, I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And, the 1-year-old hadn't really slept at all the first 6 or 7 months of his life. And I had gone back to work. It's a lot, right? And my husband works every night late. So every night it was me with both kids on my own doing, dinner and bath and bedtime and all the things. And I was perfectly capable of doing it. We had our routine, but it was a high stress, this has to happen and then this has to happen. It was very routine. And if I left 10 minutes late to pick them up, it threw everything off. So there was just sort of that high vibration frequency to my life. And I was working, a reasonably high powered job in consulting. But I had gone down to 3.5 days a week after my second one was born. So everything was going along fine, but job added stress. Obviously it was not an easy job. And because I had been part-time, because I had been off, I felt like I was probably a couple years past a promotion that I semi-deserved, but also wasn't really sure I was ready to lean in enough to get. And so all of that was background. And then COVID happens, and the fear of what was coming, the pressure of just I need to keep my family alive. I need to get food. I need to figure out how to keep everyone in this house alive and sheltered, certainly made me in a darker place. And having both children at home, all day, every day. My husband took over my office. So he was working 100% full time behind closed doors most of the day. And I still had my job and I had both kids. And, it was a mess, right? So I was convinced I was going to get fired and there was nothing I could do differently or do about it. Um, I was sitting in the playroom trying to take calls and do work with both kids. And then the little one would go try to climb the stairs and I'd have to drop the computer and run and grab him before he knocked himself out. So it was just like a constant that. Um, it was scary. It was totally overwhelming. And I didn't really feel good about myself or my physical health or my body or, like I didn't have any mental space to like figure anything out about me. It was really just like
survival.
Yeah. And all of that said, like in the grand scheme, I had it pretty good, right? Like we were able to stay home. We didn't have to go work on the front lines. We didn't have to commute. We had a perfectly nice house and a yard we could go out to. And, like we didn't have quote unquote real problems during COVID. And we had, on the flip side, a lot of family time that we didn't get otherwise. And I saw that and recognized like, daddy can come down and have lunch with us. And daddy's here at night for bedtime. Like I never had that, right? Like that part was really great. And I did kind of recognize that. But, as we say, like your world is your world. It didn't make the other stuff easier, right? The constant, like every single day was a slog, right? It was a lot of hours of entertaining kids and trying to get work done and having to feed them. Everyone always wanting a snack and let's go outside and let's play a board game. And can't you just play by yourself? And my little one decided that was when he didn't want to nap anymore. And it was just like,
oh, Steph, yes.
Right. So, it was overwhelming. And, I was in a dark place, right? Like there wasn't a lot that was making me happy or like giving me reason to be positive. Really just like get through it. And that.
How was that showing up in so internally you were feeling all this, you were probably watching yourself like, ugh. How was that then being projected into your relationships with those that are closest to you?
Well, I had a very short temper. So I think I was impatient, more impatient with my kids than I wanted to be. I'm sure I was more impatient with my husband, although I remember that less because it was just less time, right? I was with the kids all day. That's what I remember is thinking, I'm doing too much yelling at them and I don't like it. I don't like just feeling so on edge all the time. Like anything can just knock everything down. I actually think things were okay. Like I was really grateful that my husband and I weren't at each other's throats because I think that was really hard for a lot of people with that kind of forced closeness for such a long time. That was one thing I remember thinking, we are so lucky that we get along and are compatible and this is not a hardship for us. And it's a positive that we get more family time. So I think it was really more like my shortness with the kids and my, just sort of short fuse and feeling like I was very close to the edge all the time.
Hold that with you for just a second here, because as a mom myself, the little ones and women that are listening to this that will be remembering their moments in COVID, or even if they didn't have their kids, then they were young when COVID, like just those, the overwhelm and the allotness of being a mom, and like no one prepares you for it. No one tells you, you just can't, like you can't possibly fully understand and appreciate it, I don't think, until you're there. And for me, like, oh, gosh, I swallow it a lot, but I can still feel the pressure cooker happening for me, like, and then actually when I hear someone that says like, I just let it out, I'm like, oh, that sounds like, sometimes I'm like, that day is coming. Like, they're going to be like, what just happened to mom? Who is this woman? Because it's just like,
yeah.
But hearing another woman and another mom share that is just such humanity and realness. And so thank you for acknowledging that for all of us that feel that.
Yeah. And I think everybody has their own reality. And I constantly remind myself to be grateful that I have two really healthy, well-adjusted kids. And like, I've never seen my kid in a hospital bed. And like, I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the fact that I still have my moments, right? And sometimes guilty that I have my moments because I really don't feel like I have much to be unhappy about. But
Right.
that is reality, right? We have our reality, we have the things that work and the things that don't, and it's always going to be that way within our own families.
And there will always be someone that has it worse, and there will always be someone that you have it bad. Like there's always, you can play the game of relativity with yourself if that either helps you get better perspective and stay grounded.
Right.
I think that's powerful when the reframe does that, but I also am like really sensitive to when we're reframing it and we're denying ourselves
Exactly.
what's real and not being able to at least say it in a safe space or talk about it. It's like,
Right.
you know, the moment someone is just like first world problems or white woman problems or whatever, it's like, maybe, and let's give life and breath to that.
It shouldn't, I mean, I think everybody should have perspective and be sensitive, but I don't think the context or that perspective should take away from your own ability to process what works and what doesn't work for you. And, I've seen it both ways. I think, the other piece of context in all of this was right before my younger son was born, we lost my sister-in-law to breast cancer. My husband's sister, everybody was very close. She was very close with my older son. And that was a year before. So she met my little one in utero, but she never got to see him born. So the family had been in a dark place before that, right? Just having gone through all of that in her illness. And I've seen, how it's been for my mother-in-law to go through life now with this reality and how it makes her feel when people talk about their daughters or when people vent about something with a child and her immediate reaction of, you can't talk about this with me. Like, I can't do this with you. Or, some people don't have, or whatever it is. And it's a perfectly legitimate reaction. But I do see the other side of it sometimes when she says those things where it's like, making someone feel badly for having their feelings isn't going to feel good for them either. And so she's not doing that on purpose at all. Right. But like, I can see both sides of it. And so I feel like I'm just very aware of that because it's so unbelievably painful for her to have those experiences. And I wish I could shield her from all of them. But I also can imagine how hard it is to hear that, right? And then feel worse about something you already feel badly about, because now not only am I unhappy with whatever the situation is, but now I made you feel bad and I feel bad about that. And,
Yeah, exactly.
So
I understand what you're saying, the capacity, and it is, it's like, it's how can we have, as a human being, the capacity to have it be a both and, like, that is real for you, what she's saying, and she's honoring her boundaries and saying what she needs.
Yeah.
And if she's able to do that, well, when she says it and have someone say, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that, not my intention. And she can also be like, I know, it just is what it is. And then that creates the like, this is just a lot and it's hard, but without trying to fix it.
Right.
Or reframe it or excuse it or justify it or anything. It's like, it's truly being in the like, yeah.
Yeah.
All real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm. Okay. So you recognize this within yourself, at least, that there was this, space that you were occupying that was not, you had the recognition and awareness to be like, I want to make some shifts and changes. And I know it ultimately led to some big career pivots and shifts. Can you speak into what those initial steps were like? Like, and I guess in the context of, a woman who might be listening to this, or a man who's thinking, I want to maybe, I'm like, what Steph is saying is resonating with me. I need to make some changes. And I don't know how to trust myself or what that first step could be. So speaking into your own experience, what was that like for you?
Well, I think so. I guess the context being, I had read an article, I don't know, maybe a year or so before in a local publication about a woman who I knew in the community, but didn't know her backstory, who had lost her husband. She had two young kids at home. She wasn't working. Her husband passed away, which, like, alone, right? This was like my biggest fear, especially now during COVID. And she had to move on, figure out how to move on and raise these kids. And she had gone and gotten a coaching certification, created a coaching business, found love again, got remarried, blended their families. And so this whole story was sort of about what she's doing now and how she's brought everything forth to this current, calling or whatever you term it. But I was just so inspired by the idea of like, that was like my biggest fear. And I felt like I would not be able to come back from something like that. And so seeing this story about how she had pulled herself out from the depths of that and completely like created a positive course in her life in the midst of such dire circumstances. I just was really blown away. And I thought, if she can do that, I want to know her better. And so I had reached out to her at that time and said, like, I might contact you about coaching. And that was in the back of my head. I hadn't done it, but I knew she was there. And that was in the back of my head as I hit this rock bottom. And I just kept feeling like I became aware that when people would say, how are you? I just was, I'm good. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? And I just started sort of pausing and thinking, like, I don't really know the answer to that question. Like, I want to be able to answer that honestly and not just, by reflex. And not only do I want to answer honestly, but in order to answer honestly, I need to know the answer. And I don't know because I don't really know what it's based on, right? Like, is how I am determined by my family, like my self-worth, my physical body, my work? Like, what is the formula that helps me? Well, if this thing's great and this thing's terrible, what's the answer? And I really felt like I didn't know. But I knew I wasn't great. And the COVID thing just like brought that all
Amplified it.
Yeah. So, somewhere in all of there, I can't remember the exact timing, I decided to contact her. I also finally got to the point where my despair outweighed my fear. And we said, we have to get some help with the kids. So right around the same time, I started talking to the coach and started getting a little bit of part-time help with the kids. And just like had to let go enough of fear and exposing us to like one more person because like I felt like it was unhealthy, the dynamic we had in the house. So I did both of those things, and getting the help also gave me a little bit of freedom to have conversations with a coach. And the first thing we did was take stock of all of these different areas of my life and what was my satisfaction level and what was my desired change and what were the priorities. And the first thing I tackled was how short I was with my children and the patterns that were happening that I didn't like. And almost immediately, once I started kind of working through, well, this is what happened, this is why it happened, this is what I'm going to do next time, within a week or two, I could see specific situations where, having done the thinking and planning, I knew how to react and I did better this week than last week. And that created a feeling of empowerment and confidence and momentum that then I think helped me expand that to other areas. So like the second big thing for me was physical health. And, I had a conversation with my doctor. I did some reading. Like I started feeling like there are little things I can do to make a difference. And then once I had some success with that and it kept going, I'm, okay, now I'm making changes that are making me a better mom. I'm making changes that are making me physically feel and look better. And it just kind of like snowballed.
Yeah.
And by the end of, the end of that year, or like the following year, I had lost, I don't know, 20 pounds or so. I felt great. We had a nanny that was like my best friend and was just like, had changed my life. I got the promotion, which I thought I thought I was
Thought you were getting fired.
And I felt like I was killing it. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that was the turning point. Right. And it changed my perspective entirely. I don't know. I think it made me reevaluate the way that I had looked at things before and what I thought I was capable of doing going forward. And
what sits in that space then when you say I was able to reevaluate the way I did things before? What is that?
Um, I think it just changed my view of like my self-worth and what I felt like was happening to me
Mm.
versus what I felt like I could make happen for me.
I'm hearing the empowerment, and
Yeah,
you took your power back, or noticed where you were having power leaks, and
right.
then connecting into that power source of yourself. Wow. Oh,
Yeah. Um, yeah. And I also, at some point, I think I just recognized the power of that coaching influence. And there was something lit in me saying, like there's something here. Like I may want to look into this someday, right? Like I may want to do this for other people because this has been such an amazing influence in my life. But also I knew I had done all the work, right? Like she helped me and she got me there and it was the catalyst, but I did it, right? Like I had all the pride of like, I made these decisions and I went after it. I recognized when I needed it. I went and did it. I made the plan. I executed the plan and I saw the results. So like, I just love the idea of being able to like do that for other people. And I
yeah.
think that fed into my work too. It was like, I want to be doing more of this than, writing reports.
A lot of women, when they start to feel like, "Oh, maybe I'm being drawn to this other thing, or maybe there's a side hustle I could start," or what I think happens in a lot of our Ivy League brains can be, it's got to be all or nothing. And the fact that you are
Mhm.
threading it through and playing it out in this way, I think is something that could really be of value to people who are thinking of jumping ship or doing something more extreme. So speaking into how that's evolved on a more organic way for you.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting because I've been back and forth on very opposite sides of the spectrum. And what I learned, I think, through doing all this coaching and like teaching myself a new way of thinking was, to sort of like let those crazy thoughts fly, get them out, not make rash decisions, and really sort of press and challenge myself on the instincts and like, why do I want to do that? And why haven't I done it? If I want to do it so much, why hasn't it happened? And so, I embraced a lot of the coaching approaches at work. I tried to sort of pivot a lot of the work I was doing corporately in that direction and just kind of embrace as much of it as I could. Um, and that was all going well until a lot of stuff happened at work. Things got reorganized. I got thrown into new clients. And as a result, just wasn't able to do a lot of the internal team focused stuff that was really filling my cup. And that was a turning point where I sort of said, maybe I don't want to be doing this anymore. But because I sort of held off and didn't knee jerk, just like up and quit, I was able to sort of take the time to figure out, well, what does that mean? What do I do next? And that's when I decided to put this backup plan in place of like, well, let me use the extra time now that I don't have as many of these other things to do, go get certified, see what I want to do with it, start to put those pieces in place so that if and when I do want to leave, it's not so scary. Um, and in the meantime, let things settle and we'll see, right? Maybe I don't have to leave. So I did all of that. I was really proud of having been able to do all of that. And I think in the course of all of this, and this is kind of what I meant earlier when I said it changed my thinking, I knew what I was good at. And I, for the first time, I think in my life, was comfortable just being able to say it and say, like, this is what I want to be doing. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to do as much of this as I can here. And if the equation tips too far in the other direction, I'll know that's my signal to get out. And, I have the backup plan ready to scale up. So I sort of had that in the back of my mind now for a couple of years. And only recently, right, I've gone from like, this isn't working, I'm going to have to leave, to I have it really good here and I have the flexibility I need and I can do the coaching stuff on the side. Like, this is the sweet spot. I should go nowhere, and back and forth and back and forth. And I finally realized recently, like, it's not just this is convenient. There's something about this work outside of the coaching that I'm holding on to. And I really like it. And so, figuring that out for myself and saying, like, I could stay connected to the business piece, I can stay connected to the marketing and the consulting and still do the coaching because it's relevant in this environment, right? I don't need to necessarily be seeing a ton of private coaching clients outside of work, outside of, day job work in order to be doing that work.
Right.
So kind of learning how to blend them within or without, I guess, depending on how you look at it, the confines of my day job has been really empowering. So that's the work that fulfills me, right? But I also really like being able to keep up the other stuff that, I have the business degree, I have those connections, I have the skill set, I have the knowledge. I think I would miss it, right? I think I would miss having strategic conversations about branding and brand building and all of that. And I think it would be really hard to get it back. So I've been trying to kind of figure out like maybe there is a way to keep holding on to it and not feel like that's detracting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Implementing this thing that if I had to choose, sure, I'd probably go with, the coaching.
Right. It's so
Yeah.
interesting though, like when we sometimes put that pressure on ourselves that there has to be a choice, whether
Yeah.
that's in a job or in a marriage or in a relationship or whatever it is, like we so often create these like obstacles for ourselves and we're like, wait, you have it all right now.
Yeah. And I think being able to articulate that and having the confidence at work to say, here's what I'm good at and what I want to do and what adds the most value, as long as we can keep me focused in those areas, that works. If that doesn't work anymore, if the only place I can exist is over here doing this stuff, that just may be where we need to part ways. I'm like, that's
Right.
okay, right? As long as you can use me in the way I want to be used and the way that I think makes the best of my skills, I'm here. But, if that ends up not working for anyone, like, that's okay. I'll go off and do the other thing. And like, that doesn't need to be a secret in my own head, right? Like, so learning to
Oh,
articulate that and say, this is what I'm good at. Use me over here was
so
empowering.
so freeing. Like what
Yeah,
I'm hearing you say also is you've been really clear on your boundaries and like not hiding them or your intentions.
right.
And I think so often we hold our intentions close to our vests, which doesn't make it easier for anyone to play with us in a way that is winning in everyone's realm.
Right. And that's a lot of the advice I give or, you know, thought starters I give to people at work is if you're not feeling engaged and excited, ask for the things that will make you feel engaged and excited. Don't feel guilty that you're not like enjoying your job. Like everyone wants you to enjoy your job. You're not doing anyone any favors by sort of keeping that to
Pretending
yourself or like feeling like you need to look somewhere else when you really want to be here. But you do need to figure out what you want
what it is.
and yeah, get it out there because you're not going to get it if you don't ask for
Yeah, right. So I have to ask the question, what are you really good at?
it. I'm really good at understanding people and what they need and figuring out how to connect that to what we can deliver. Um, I'm good at sort of seeing the big picture, both people wise and business wise. And I really, really like guiding and mentoring and teaching. So, the business world aspect is sort of, I love being connected to the marketing strategy at a very high, high level that also enables me to help guide the team both with their own careers and their own direction, but also, the actual material that we're learning and or that they're learning. And I really want to be able to stay connected in that way to sort of scale that skill set and help more people figure out how to think critically and think strategically and think for themselves. I think there's way, way, way too much order taking. And at the same time, there's an expectation of proactivity and independence, but it's not being taught. So I don't know why anyone is surprised when people get to a certain level and then don't know how to think for themselves because we're not teaching them to think for themselves. So, a huge amount of I think what I offer best in this environment, in the corporate environment, is really understanding what a client needs, what they're asking for, how to translate it to what the team can do, how to kind of pivot maybe what they're asking to what they actually need, making them feel heard and understood and diffusing tense situations and really sort of like the relationship piece of what goes into a strategic relationship. And that's a really hard skill to teach, right? You have to sort of model it. You can't just teach it
It's
in
a
class.
being versus doing. To me, I
Yeah,
translate what you're saying is you're modeling it. It's not a concept that it's this, and this. It's not the order taking.
right.
And it really is a superpower of that gift that is an embodiment. It's hard for you
Yeah.
to put in words, probably, because you're like, I just do it.
Yeah. But I know there's only so much value in doing it, right? What we need is to teach more people how to take that approach and think that way. So, I really try to kind of hold back on the immediate, here's what we're going to do, and like challenge my teams to say, like, well, what do you guys think about this? Where, and then kind of push on that and build on it and add to it, but get them to start thinking, like, instead of, well, let's go ask Stephanie what we should do, let's think about this. And the other thing I think is really important that people don't do enough is to be really fully transparent and vulnerable and say, like, guys, I got this email, honestly, and I just said, I cannot deal with this. And I walked away and I gave my son a bath, or whatever. And then as it stewed and I thought about it and I put myself in the client's shoes and whatever, it was like, it's a perfectly legitimate question, even though, like, maybe I wasn't dying to answer it. Like, I can't be angry, and it doesn't necessarily mean a bad turn of events. It just, we have to roll with it. And so I had to process it, right? Like, this is the nature of our work, and like, not knowing right away what to do is okay. Looking confident doesn't mean I'm 100% confident 100% of the time, or that I always know what to do.
Yeah.
But I'm confident enough to know that I'll get there if I, give it time. And so I think telling people that and making it okay to not always know the answer, and to give yourself some time and not have everything move at, lightning speed. People don't hear a lot of that, right? A lot of senior people want to be seen as very decisive and confident and capable and certain, right? And I don't think that's helpful.
You're speaking to my heart. You're speaking to my heart right now, Steph. Yes. It's like, oh, everything buttoned up, everything all figured out. And again, I see so often, like in corporate, when I talk to people, or I can remember when I was there, feeling that really, like, I'm going to say frustration, and like you can just feel it, and like you could see me right now, like, of people professing values and speaking, this is what we do, culture, all this stuff, and it's like not modeling it. And I can't tell you how many times I would talk to someone who I was coaching, and I'd be like, okay, well, the upper management saying we're a safe space, or share what you're doing. It's like, when they trust that and practice it, there is this sort of, I'll even say it's like a unspoken backlash that happens, but we can.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you see that happening in corporate, but there's this like whole notion of, well, we're going to do the DEI thing. We're going to do like all these things that are now being pushed down from top down, or being told from the outside world, well, we better follow this. And it's the difference between saying it and modeling it. That's what I'm hearing you say. You're modeling it. And when we model it, it really, you can't, it goes leaps and bounds beyond words, right?
Right.
Actions speak louder than words. I mean, the old expression.
Right. It's very easy to say, like, take the client's perspective, think about things from it. It's very easy to say that, but it means a lot more when you work through it live. And, I had this experience recently. We got an email from a client. It felt very challenging. People's knee jerk reaction is, ooh, they're not happy. We need to do more. And the conversation we had was around, this is your feeling their anxiety about what they're expected to get from their teams. And it's legit. And what we can do is understand that, acknowledge it, and be one team in anticipating those needs and helping the client prepare for them, as opposed to falling into the pattern of, well, they're the client and we're providing and they're not happy, and therefore we need to do something else. Well, that may not be the case, right? They're not even clearly asking. The reaction doesn't have to be, they're unhappy, let's do more. It can be, let's explore why you're feeling that concern. It may have nothing to do with what we've given you, and everything to do with all the pressure that's going to be on you in this meeting once we present the report if people are coming at you. So let us help you prepare for that, as opposed to us doing the thing we know and do well, which is, produce.
Yep. Wow. I mean, I see so much of your coach embodiment just coming through in this conversation, right? Like, you're talking about it in corporate. I can just, I sense, I feel your ability to take what's being said at the surface and there's someone saying, this is what I want, this is what I need, and you being able to help process, to go deeper, to translate what's really at play here.
Yeah. And I think that takes a long time and a lot of experience to figure out how to do. But the sooner people get to start practicing that, the sooner they get that, as opposed to, kind of being shielded from it and just told what to do until all of a sudden they're in that seat and they've had no practice.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing all this. I like to switch these into a rapid fire 3 questions I'd ask everyone just to see what comes up. Yeah. Okay. Lightning round. Cue the music. First question is, when you think of people pleasing, imposter syndrome, and perfectionism,
Mm.
which one is the biggest thorn on your rose bush today?
Probably perfectionism.
And maybe it's sincere for this, but what's a lie you still tell yourself?
Oof, a lie I still tell myself. Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know.
Or framed another way, what's a belief that you're still like finding yourself telling yourself that you're like, that's actually not true?
I think that I would say it's something around, it's only in the last 5 years that I've really gotten myself in the physical health and shape that I wanted to be my whole life. And I think that was holding me back my whole life, because not only because it impacted my self-confidence, but because it was like the only thing I had ever failed at. Like everything else, even if I failed, I was able to turn it into something that worked. And that was the one thing that I had tried everything, I had done everything, and I just couldn't make it work. And so having sort of conquered that, I think constantly am telling myself, like, you haven't conquered this, right? Like one day of missing a workout, or, eating more birthday cake than you wanted or whatever, is like a sign that you are slipping right back and like, you can't do this.
Mm.
And I still haven't figured out, like, does that serve me because it keeps me honest, or is that really just like knocking me down a peg every time? And I, at this point, need to say, like, you've done it this long, like, you've got this. So I think there's something around like, you're destined to fail at this again, that I really want to believe is a lie. And most of me believes is a lie most of the time, but it does sneak in sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I actually got the chills right at the end there when you said that. Um, last one is, what's something that is edgy in your life right now that you feel like this is a moment that you will give a voice to it?
Edgy meaning like it doesn't feel good?
Edgy, then not necessarily it doesn't feel good, but it's like you're in an edge of growth, or it's really alive for you right now. It's like, whoo, I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm in my yellow zone of, I'm on my edge of expansion or becoming more of what feels true and aligned for me.
Um, I mean, I think it's probably just this like figuring out. I feel like I've been on the crux of this career shift now for a while. And I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the edge of definition of like, something is about to happen. And it's gonna either mean a new, semi-new direction in what I take on corporately, or it's gonna precipitate a major departure or shift in the corporate relationship. And I think for a long time that was making me uncomfortable. And now it feels more intentional, and like I'll have more conviction when it does happen, because I took so much time to make sure I was being clear with myself on what the definition is of what works and what doesn't, and not doing something I would regret. So,
Okay, I just got a visual. So imagining you are standing at a pool's edge. Would you rather in this moment, just right now, could change 5 minutes, 10 minutes from now, but in this moment, would you rather be jumping into the pool or being pushed into the pool? Like, what do you think would serve you best?
I've been wondering that.
Just picture it. Bring yourself.
I I mean, this is kind of a non-answer, but I feel like what I have been craving is that push where like you can kind of like catch yourself on one foot or just go with it and jump. And like, I think I've consciously said to myself, like, you're not going to jump until you've got at least a nudge, because I don't want to leave anything behind. I don't want to have left like a stone unturned or an opportunity on the table. So, and I think, I think the fact that I didn't just go 100% and say, like, this isn't working for me, I'm going to go over here, has helped me realize, like you said, it's not all one or the other. And maybe I get pushed and like a raft lands under me. Or, like, there are other, right? It's not as black and white as it seems, because like all these other things could happen.
Yeah.
So, I think figuring that out and deciding, like, maybe the leap isn't the leap I thought it was. Maybe I need to leap in a different direction. Maybe it's a leap into a ball pit instead of a pool, or, so I think the pushes are necessary. I think the pushes, as hard as many of them have been the things that caused me to pause, reflect, and be really choiceful.
Yeah.
And they seem terrible at the time, but in retrospect, like, it's hard for me to make these decisions on my own. Like, I need the kick. I need something to shock my system to make me, take stock and do something different. It happened with COVID. It happened with work. Like, something external has to happen that makes me feel the motivation to change. Or like realize something's not working or is about to be not working, and like notice that I have to do something about it. So I guess short answer is I probably need the push. If I had to make a choice, I need the push.
Yeah. And the acknowledgement I'm feeling right now is the push is not there right now. So it's like full on playing and accepting and enjoying exactly where you are.
Like, I can feel the hand.
The hands are there, but it hasn't happened. So like, you'll know when the push is there without having to go.
Right.
Right.
And the difference between the push now and the push 5-6 years ago is I know I will come up on top, right? I know my head will come above water and I'll be fine.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Wow.
Even if I land, upside down.
There will be a web catching you. There'll be something there to hold you.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for, this is so, again, like I said at the start, you never know where we're going to go, but there was so much wisdom. There's so much in your story and your experience that I think is a reflection onto a grander scale of what women, men, non-binary, everyone right now is feeling in our own way, shape, or form. And I'm grateful for having this space to connect with you in this way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to sort of reflect and hear yourself think out loud, because we don't probably get enough opportunities to do this.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to be in contact with our community, you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Ivy League Sisters, or visit our website at ivyleaguesisters.com. And if you found this conversation valuable, I invite you to share it with another woman, another friend, another loved one, because it's through our sharing that we inspire one another and deepen our connections. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. We are in this crazy thing called life together.